All right, with that musical interlude, we are live. Hi, Sherjan, how are you?
Hey, Ashley, what's going on? Doing well, doing well.
I am also doing very well and hoping that our live audience is too. If you all wouldn't mind, if you've been in one of these sessions before, you already know what I'm going to ask, and that is for you to drop us a comment and let us know that you can see us and that you can hear us. Would also love to know where you're tuning in from. It's always fun to see the geographic representation that we have in these events. I can say I am repping San Francisco, California today. I got from Sherjan, you are in Toronto.
I'm in a
Uh,
I'm in a small village near Toronto, so I'm probably in a village of like 150 people right now.
oh, that sounds lovely. Nashua, New Hampshire, from Florida. Okay, so we have folks from lots of different corners who are here today to learn from a true expert in networking. It's one of those things that I know for a lot of people causes anxiety, sweaty palms. It's a loaded topic, a loaded task that a lot of us feel like we have to do. We in days of days prior to COVID, it was a lot of cocktail parties or meetup events of various sorts, and you have to kind of put on your performance face and what is your elevator pitch and go out there. Uh, we've got some new tools or newish tools or new opportunities with the way that the world is kind of evolving and where we are right now. To explore different paths to networking. And Sherjan, I'm so excited to have you with us today to kind of share a little bit of your wisdom for this thing that I think is really scary to a lot of people. I don't know if it has it always been easy for you. I don't know.
No, I think I've been confident and not, I've been willing to like play with fire and not having
Yeah.
the fear of like, oh, what if the person doesn't reply to my email or whatever? What's the worst thing that can happen? The worst thing that can happen is your life remains the same and your life is pretty good, right? It's not that bad. So I think that confidence has always been in me. So I always take the shot, and over time, it's obviously become a little bit more formulated. But a lot of people, don't take these, take action, take the low hanging fruit, and at least take that first step, which is the easier part of it. And if they do, amazing things can happen.
I am very with you on that. I think I have so my previous life or my current life, I do a lot of speaker coaching, and the trickiest thing to kind of uh, get over is that little bit of anxiety that you have that's related to how people perceive you. You know, you might be insecure about that. And I think I just at some point decided I'm gonna have to get over that. And my version of it is, well, I just have no shame. So I'm going to throw it out there and see what happens. And that honestly has been where a lot of the best opportunities that I've had have come from. So I'm excited that you have gone through this trial and error process and are now able to share some of your wisdom with our audience, maybe ease that tension a little bit for them. Folks who are watching at home or wherever you're joining us from today, just a couple housekeeping notes. We will have a replay of this session available, so don't fret if you miss some of Sherjan's nuggets of wisdom. You'll be able to replay them. You'll get an email from us, the Discover team. You will also be able to access this session through the YouTube channel, the page that you're on right now. And on that same page, you've got access to Sherjan's course, which we'll be talking a little bit more about later. So today we're going to get a taste of some of the sort of font of wisdom that Sherjan has, all related to landing your dream job. This has been an inflection point for a lot of people, realizing that they want a career rather than a job, or that it's been an impetus for a lot of folks to pursue their passion in entrepreneurship and kind of take a step maybe away from a corporate gig. So there are lots of folks out there, and I'm guessing that a lot of our audience members are among that group who are curious to beef up their networking skills for the sake of landing a job, which is exactly what we're going to be talking about today. And I know, Sherjan, that you have lots of resources to share, lots of tips and strategies that folks can use as they're thinking about what that next step might be. So really excited to have you here. And audience, as you're going through this journey with us, if you have questions, drop them in the chat. I'll be monitoring that for the rest of today's session. We'll save some time for Q&A at the end, but we can also always bring up pertinent questions that you have in real time. That's the beauty of live.
Yeah.
And drop us a note and let us know what you're excited to learn about today, what you're hoping to pursue. I can tell just from what I know about his background that Sherjan is a great person to kind of lead us through this. Tons of experience landing some pretty cool jobs before you even decided to go out on your own, right? And now spending time sharing your wisdom, coaching folks on how they can kind of take that next step themselves. So Sherjan, I will turn it over to you, and I'll be here if anybody has any questions. Feel free to drop those in the chat.
Awesome. Thanks, Ashley. Appreciate it. Hey, everyone. I'm Sherjan. Really excited to meet you all. There's apparently 200 plus people in this, so I'm excited to have a chat with all of you. So today we're going to go through a bunch of step-by-step process about learning about, things that I've learned along my, around my, I guess, 11 plus year career in a bunch of different verticals, from finance to tech to startups, and a bunch of other different things in it. And so I want to give you guys a lot of value today. So definitely take a lot of notes. Obviously, like Ashley mentioned, this is going to be recorded as well, so you can have that recording later, so you can follow through. But there's going to be a lot of value provided to you. And I hope really my only goal after this is to, at the end of this 1 hour, you have the confidence to reach out to people you don't know. You have the confidence to knock on doors that feel unknown and feel too far, and feel locked forever. And hopefully you take those steps. And, like I said earlier in this chat, the worst thing that can happen is your life remains the same. And in my opinion, your life is actually pretty good, right? So like your life is better than me. I don't even have furniture yet. So I'm still waiting for furniture. So anyways, so let's get started. Quick intro about me and who I am. My name is Sherjan. I know, weird name, but, pronounced like surgeon or doctor. And I've been, I started my career, if I give you a few points of my, background, is I worked at Google. I worked at Morgan Stanley, which is an investment bank. Worked in different places from San Francisco to Hong Kong and Toronto. But if I pause there, people will be like, oh, those are really hard to get into companies. How did someone even do that? You must have gone to nice schools, have a high GPA, all those other things. But what if I tell you the other side of the equation, which is, I went to school in engineering, so did not study business or anything like that. Number two, I was a pretty crappy engineer. My GPA was 3.0, which is not a good GPA, as you can imagine. And within engineering, I did aerospace engineering, which is, the engineering of building planes and stuff. And I sucked at it. So you definitely did not want me designing any planes. I'll guarantee you that much. So, with that background and being an international student, I'm from Canada. Originally, I'm from Pakistan. Getting these jobs in California or Hong Kong or other parts of the world seemed, pretty hard in terms of, for most people. But how did I do it? So connecting those two kind of, I guess, islands is what I teach other people. Like, how do you go from, a bunch of barriers that you have, a bunch of bottlenecks that you have? How do you, get that motivation? How do you get that step-by-step process? And hopefully it gets you to a you 2.0, which I call, meaning a better version of you, a little bit better. So those of you who are joining here, who may be in an industry already and want to get a promotion, you're at the right place. Let's say you're in a totally different industry. Let's just say you're in retail. For example, let's just say you're a cashier at McDonald's and you want to upgrade your career to becoming a manager at McDonald's and start owning a bunch of franchises. You're at the right place, because all of it requires people, because the world of business, the world of just life is a world of, it's a business of people. So you need to be interacting with a lot of people, and networking is what's going to get you there. So either you're rising up in your career in one industry or you're trying to switch industries, you will need to interact with humans, and how to interact with humans and share your best self is what I'm going to teach you today. So with that being said, today's main topic is how to network to get into any door you want. Not all doors will open, some will. And the goal is if even one opens, we're in a better place than we are today. So we're going to start with something. There's 5 topics I want to go through today. The first one starts with building a brand, right? So let's take a step back and talk about what a brand is. When we think brand, we think companies like Apple, we think companies like Nike, right? These companies, if you see Apple store, if you see an Apple employee, see an Apple phone, see anything related to Apple, even an ad on Facebook or their Facebook group or Instagram, they all have the same, viewpoint. They're all showing the same thing.
Iconic.
They're all marketing. Yeah, exactly. Right. So you need to start thinking of yourself as a brand. When you started your career early on, when you're an undergrad or college or high school, you're not a brand. You're still building that. But as you get older and older and you start getting all these experiences and stuff, you'll start realizing that you are actually, getting all these value. Let me just pause there. Ashley, is there a background noise that you're hearing?
I don't hear anything, but let's ask our audience. Anybody hear background noise? Just type in the chat there. In the meantime, I'll mute my mic just in case.
Okay, got it. Awesome. So basically, these brands have built over a long time and they have this brand identity. A lot of people themselves don't think of themselves as a brand. And I think it's very, very important that over time, once you're 5 to 10 years into your career, start transitioning into building a brand for yourself so that people, when they think about you, they don't think of you just as a candidate. They think of all the things you bring with you. So how do you build that brand? That's the first part. Now, the first thing with branding is you got to figure out what are you good at? What do you love doing? What are you passionate about? And I actually build a list for myself every year, which has two parts to it. One is what do I love doing? And it's also what do I hate doing, right? Things I don't like doing. Usually the things that you love doing are the things that are going to define your brand. So how do you build that brand? Because anybody who sees you, especially in this new online world, they're going to start, they're going to meet you before they even actually physically meet you or even meet you on Zoom. They're going to see stuff that you have on your social media. They're going to see stuff that you have on your LinkedIn. They're going to see the resume that you have. So all of those things are going to define your brand. So we're going to go step by step in terms of what are the key aspects of a brand. The first thing is your resume. Now, I know everybody has a resume and everybody has that and all that stuff. But the truth is most people's resume sucks, right? It's actually not a good resume. And people take it lightly. They could take a template online. They put some, their names and stuff in it. But they end up actually creating something that is not just appealing. It doesn't look good. And making a brand look good, making a resume look good is super, super important. Now, why is a resume so important? Number one, it's the most important document in your life because it's a living document. It changes all the time as you get more experience. Get a new job, join a new club, get a new, extracurricular activity, any of those things will start getting on your resume. So it is a living document. None of your other documents are living documents. They're not changing. The second part is it is your agent, meaning it is your salesperson, your brand ambassador when you're not there, right? In most situations, especially in the modern world when you're networking, you're not going out to a cocktail party and meeting someone. You're not going to some mixer and meeting folks. Those days unfortunately are long gone, and they're not going to be as relevant these days. So having a resume which actually showcases your best abilities and crushes it for you when you're not there is super important. So if you want to build a good resume, there's a lot of templates out there, but I obviously live by my own template and I give my template out for free. So if you want to get the best resume template and learn how to use it, just go to sherjan.com/resume and it'll show you what it is. You'll also get a copy of my own actual resume with all of my details. I'm very open about my details, other than my phone number and my address. Don't show up, right? You can show up if you can find me, but get that resume. Spend at least a weekend on it, get it done really nicely, and have that physical document done. So that's one thing. Now you have your resume done. The second piece is the digital world, right? Like everything these days is online, and people don't think of themselves as an online brand. But even if companies like Google and Apple and Nike think of them as online brand, you need to start thinking of yourself as an online brand. So go to Apple's website for a second, or Nike's website for a second. They have the same brand identity as they have in their retail stores, right? So you need to start doing that as well. And for you, your online presence can be a lot of different things. One thing is LinkedIn. Now, everybody has a LinkedIn, I hope, but most people, like I said, have a pretty bad looking LinkedIn. It's not as nice. So I'm going to show you my LinkedIn right now, just to give you guys an idea of what I mean by this. So Ashley, I'm going to share a screen. Ooh, let's see, where are we here? So LinkedIn. Let me know if you see this.
I do. Got it.
Got it. All right, awesome. So I'm going to show you guys my LinkedIn. Obviously, I have a ton of people that I have connected with over my life, and that's not the reason why you guys should be going on this. The reason is you need to have a good brand presence. So a couple of things here: have a good photo, have a brand identity on the top, whatever defines you. It doesn't have to be related to the career you're going into. It just needs to be something that showcases what you're good at. If you're a great snowboarder, have a great snowboarding background. The whole idea is that when people search you, and they will search you, you want to showcase like, hey, look, this is all the cool stuff that I do. This is why I'm a fun person. And it doesn't have to be a picture in a suit. I know I'm wearing one because I'm a mentor, and that's kind of the brand I want to portray. But if, let's just say you are an artist or you are a marketing person and you want to be in a t-shirt, totally fine, right? Have a tagline, have your location, all that stuff. And if you scroll down, you'll start seeing things that are like, this, which are featured. These are things that you can create, which are things that you have actually put on the world, in the internet world. Meaning maybe you wrote an article on medium.com. Maybe you shared a really cool post somewhere. All of that stuff can be featured here. So when someone's going in and they see like a very high-end, fully filled LinkedIn profile, it gives you a higher ranking. Similarly, if you go down your activity, people don't share stuff on LinkedIn as much, but you should, because again, it gives you a higher ranking when someone does search you. So say your name is Ashley Park, right? You go to LinkedIn, I want to search Ashley Park. When I search Ashley Park, there's a ton of Ashley Parks out there. But if you have higher activity on LinkedIn, you will rank higher. So make sure you're sharing things now and then, once a week, once a month. That's totally fine. And that'll give you a little bit of a higher ranking. Similarly, have a good about thing. A short one is kind of like an elevator pitch, 3 lines, 4 lines. Just talk about what you've done in your life and have it there. Similarly, if you keep going down, have all the stuff you've done with some description and spend some time. If you are, if you have humor in your style, have humor in there. All of that stuff is fair game, and have it all the way down. So if you keep doing this, you'll start seeing that you have all of these things, and this basically is your digital resume of sorts. But the key part here is you have to have it. I've met a lot of people who do not have, LinkedIn's built, or they don't have a good photo, and that's just a bad idea. So definitely make sure you have your LinkedIn presence. But a lot of people, what they do is they pause at LinkedIn. They don't do anything more than that. And that's a big mistake. You need to use all social media channels. So the same way if you look at Apple as an example, Apple uses, Instagram, they use Twitter, they use LinkedIn, they use Medium, they use everything. They use TikTok. You need to be on all those channels, and you need to make those channels public, because as an employer, I will search you, right? If I get your resume or if I get an email from you, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Google and search it. So what you got to make sure is be consistent across all mediums. If you have a photo on LinkedIn a certain way, don't have a totally different photo or a totally different style of photo on a different channel. Make sure that it is searchable, and use that, free space. You don't pay for Instagram, you don't pay for Facebook, you don't pay for Twitter or any of those things. You can use it to your advantage. So be consistent across the board. And the last piece I just want to mention on building a brand is the Google piece. Make sure you search yourself on Google. Now you might be laughing, like, why should I search myself? The reason you should search yourself is you never know what pops up. And the first thing the employer is going to do, or someone you're trying to network with is going to do, is going to search you. So make sure there's no bad history that pops up. There's no photos that pop up that are, a little bit, off-piste, let's just say. And you want to make sure you're showing the right thing. I'll give you a quick story. A friend of mine who had a, pretty bad situation that happened in college. He was kicked out, but it ended up, college found out that it was the wrong story. So they brought him back in. But during that 3-month period when he was kicked out, there's a lot of articles that came out in the college newspaper about him. And those articles were on Google search history for a long time. He had to go get them removed because those were not true. And then ultimately, when that was cleansed, he basically was able to get really, really good jobs. And he ended up getting jobs at the top, consulting firms and tech firms and whatnot. So very, very important to make sure you are searching yourself. Kind of sounds like an ego thing to do, but just do it once. All right, cool. Let's move on to the second part. Now you've built your brand, you have a really good resume, you have a really good online presence, so you can now reach out to folks. So part 2, how do we reach out to people? But before we reach out to people, who do we reach out to? So I have a 3-tier list that I create of companies that I want to, go work for. So if you're looking for employment, you love a certain sector, there are 3 types of companies you should be reaching out to. There's tier 1 companies, which are like companies you really, really, really want to work for, right? Like no matter what, you definitely want to work for them. And these companies, not more than potentially 5 to 10. That's kind of the level of it. So if you want to go into tech, for example, a lot of people have Googles and Facebooks of the world up there. They may have Airbnbs of the world, because these are like super, super nice companies to work at. Maybe Teachable. right? That's another good company, right? So those are the companies you want to add to your tier 1 list, but it shouldn't be more than 10. These are like the super hard to get in, but you would like do everything for them. Then there's a tier 2 list, which is 25 to 30 companies where you'll be happy, right? Those are not your dream jobs, but you'll be really happy to work there. And then there's about 50 to 60 companies that you're not really passionate about them, but you'll be okay if you got them, right? So you don't really love them, you're okay with them, but you need to also have them in your target list. So in total, your target list is going to be about 100 companies. And this can always change, by the way. Don't stop at 100 if you have more to add, keep adding, but you need to go do that research. And to be honest, it'll take you maybe a couple of hours to do that. So this Saturday, for example, when you have some time, spend a couple of hours going through that. And the way you kind of figure out what companies you want to work for, start with that list that I told you earlier, the list that I make every year and you should make every year, which is 10 things I love doing, 10 things I hate doing, right? Once you make that list every year, you'll realize that list changes. Like when I was young, when I had a lot of hair and I used shampoo, I used to have a list of things I would love to do, a lot of them, and I had nothing that I hated. But now that I've gotten a lot older, there's things that I'm like, I just don't want to do that, right? I just don't have the time or the patience to do it. So build that list. Once you have that list, that's going to give you a little bit of a little heat check in terms of what companies you should be reaching out to. So if you have a company that's like, let's just say Apple, and you're like, oh, I love working in a very creative environment. Yeah, Apple seems like a creative environment, but Apple's also a very hierarchical environment. So if you don't like, hierarchy, you don't like, multiple levels above you and stuff, maybe not the good place, not the best place for you. So build that target list of 100 companies. Then you got to start finding roles within those companies. Now, obviously, you can search them, search on the career site. You can do things like that. But most people, what they do is they'll go to the career site, they'll apply, and they'll forget about everything else. That's not how you want to apply for these jobs. You need to find out who is potentially the decision maker in those roles. So when you find that company, so let's just take, for example, Teachable as an example. Let's say you want to work at Teachable and it's a great place to work at and stuff. And there's a group, let's just say the marketing team that you really want to join. Figure out who runs the marketing team, right? And you can do that. How can you do that? You have LinkedIn. Most people in these industries are on LinkedIn. So it's a simple search like head of marketing, Teachable. Search that, or even search it on Google. And when you do that, you'll find a bunch of names, not all of them, some of them, that you can then add to your database of people. So start building this database of people. And for each, I would create a Google sheet of sorts. And in that Google sheet, here are the columns you should have. Column number 1 should be the name of the person. Column number 2 should be the email, and we'll get to that in a second. Column number 3 should be a status. Status could mean something like not reached out yet, heard back, right? Got connected, something along those lines. Column number 4 is what company it is. So Teachable, Google, Facebook, whatever. And then put a tiering next to it. A tier column would be like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, right? Now, the question you may have is, okay, so you've searched LinkedIn, you've searched people, and you've found the people who are potential decision makers. And remember, decision makers are usually, the higher up you go, the more, the higher the power the person has in terms of making the decision and accepting you to reach out to them. A lot of people, what they do is they have a lot of they're pretty scared. They're not willing to reach out because they're like, oh my God, that person is a vice president of something. No, it's just a human, right? Just like you, right? They have a computer with a keyboard and, they still have 2 legs and 4 wheels on their car. They're no more special than you. So just because someone has a title doesn't make them more human than, better than you. So just get that fear out of you and feel free to even email CEOs, right? Now, the bigger the company, the less relevant the CEO is because they're too far removed from making a decision or having some time to, help you. The smaller the company, the CEOs and the founders have a lot more say. So if you have a company which is like, say, early stage company, Series A, B, C, kind of they're not as big, they're about $100 million worth or smaller, definitely reach out to the founders, totally fine. But any company bigger, so let's just say you want to reach out to Apple, obviously you're not reaching out to Tim Cook for that, but you're finding kind of the line head, marketing head of that company. Now, once you have that person's name, here's where you need to figure out how to reach out to them. So we're going to go to the third part, which is the outreach. So this is the third piece. How do you actually reach out to folks and how do you do it effectively? So first of all, you don't do it on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is not a network. It's just a directory. And that's a very important thing you need to understand. A lot of people think, oh, I have LinkedIn. I should get LinkedIn Premium or something, and I can send people messages. Most people in the industry do not check their LinkedIn messages. LinkedIn's notifications are probably the most annoying notifications in the world, and most people have them, pretty much off. So do not message people on LinkedIn, but use LinkedIn to do your research. who is this person? Where have they worked? Who else knows them potentially? Like I have about 8,000 plus people that I know on LinkedIn. No, but I'll be honest with you, I only know probably 8 of them. And of them, that's probably my mom, my sister, my dad, my cat. Those are the people that I probably connect with best. So don't reach out to on LinkedIn, but find the name of the person. And then
I'm going to need to see that cat's LinkedIn profile, by the way.
That cat shows up, I'll show you. It's a massive cat, by the way. So the next piece is on getting the email address. And this is where a lot of people are like, oh man, how am I going to get the email address of this person? Remember, emails are the easiest way to get into someone's, lack of a better word, inbox, right? Imagine if you could guess anybody's phone number, right? It's usually the case with email. Most people's emails are not a complex set of numbers or anything like that. It's usually their name, right? So how do you find this? I'm going to show you a few tricks. First of all, any company you want to reach out to, if it's a small enough company, the email of that person is usually first name @company.com, right? So, let's just say if I worked at Teachable, my email most likely, given my name is weird and unique, it will be Sherjan@teachable.com, right? It's not going to be Sherjan X135. It's not going to be that. So that's an easy one. That's pretty easy to do. If it's not first name @company.com, it's first letter of the first name and then the full last name at company.com, right? So my last name is Husainie, so it would be shusainie@teachable.com, right? If it's not that, it's first name dot last name @company.com. So there's only a few variations of it. Now, how do you even further test it? And you can do the same thing on Gmail. Now, how do you further test it? So hopefully a lot of you have Gmail. So I'm going to share my screen now, Ashley. I'm going to show them a little mini trick to figure out if the email is even real. So I'm going to share my inbox. Here we go. All right. So I'm in my inbox here and I'm writing a new message and I want to figure out if this person's email is real. So I'm going to go to the recipient's line, and this is just obviously demo purposes. Let's say I want to send an email to me. So I have a domain, sherjan.com. So if I want to type, let's just say, eric@sherjan.com. Let's just say there's a guy named Eric who works at my company. If I type that and if I hover on it, put my mouse on top of it in Gmail, it'll show me this little tab. And when you look at this little tab, it shows me there's no photo, there's no name, there's nothing. It just says what I typed is what I get. So there's a very high chance this is not a real email, right? But what if I go the other way around? Let's say I type in info@sherjan.com. I type that, you notice that it automatically pulled up my full name. I didn't tell it was my full name. And when I hover on top of it, you'll notice that it gives me a lot more information. It shows me a photo, shows me my full name, has my email address on there, right? And this basically shows that this email is real. So similarly, you can do this with most other, like literally not most, all other emails, right? All other domains, meaning any company you can do this. So go to Google, Gmail, type in the email you want to check, hover your mouse over it, wait a second, it'll pop up, do this pop-up thingy, and that'll verify if that email is real. If you can't figure that out, you can also just go to Google, and on Google, you can then type in quotations that email and see if there's any things that pop up. So this works really, really well. Now, why does this work? The reason it works is most companies, they sign up with Google to get their email service. And because they do, in the back end, Google kind of provides this information. So get a Gmail account, and this will allow you to even further verify the email. Now, how do we use this? You have the email address, you have the email of all those hundreds of people that you put in your target list. Now what you got to do is you got to reach out to them. So what we're going to do is next, I'm going to teach you how to do that. And now cold email is the best kind of tool that you have available to you. And I use it to this day. When I was trying to get jobs, I did that, cold email. When I was trying to get, promoted to or change companies, I did that. When I tried to get into companies to invest in them, I used cold emailing. When I tried to reach out to investors to fund my company, I also cold email. So cold emailing is the old people's sliding into DMs. Okay, that's the best way to describe it. Now, how do you write a good cold email? Very simple. Once you have your target list, type in the email address to the to line. In the subject line, type something that connects you to, meaning you and the person who you're reaching out to. A lot of times, if I'm looking for a job, I'll put a subject line that says, Sherjan / aspiring analyst, or reaching out, for an opportunity, or something along those lines. Or, for example, let's just say both of you went to UCLA. I went to UCLA. So if I found someone who I want to reach out to, and them and I, we we have this bridge, this connection piece, which is, let's just say UCLA, I would put UCLA as a subject line, right? Now, the reason I say that is when people check their inboxes, they always look at the subject line before they even open the email. So you want to have something that catches their attention. Once you get into the actual body of the message, here's what you write. Go straight with the first name. Hi, Steve, right? Or hi, Jenny, comma. And I'm just going to, tell you the script so you guys can type it while I say this. Hi, Jenny, comma, next line. My name is Sherjan. I am a second year something, or I'm doing this and this currently in my role. So you just do a one-line intro about who you are. So for me, it was like, for example, hi, my name is Sherjan. I'm a vice president at Morgan Stanley in investment banking, period, right? You could do whatever you're doing. Hey, I'm Jenny, and I'm leading marketing at this, at Stripe, for example. Then the second sentence is, I got your contact information from, and you can say LinkedIn or something else, and wanted to reach out to you regarding opportunities within your group at Stripe. So let's just assume we're reaching out to someone at Stripe right now. So the second sentence makes it very, very clear, what am I reaching out to? Now, a lot of people are pretty scared about saying the truth. They're always like, oh, I'd love to get connected with you so we can learn about the market or network, get a coffee. Nothing specific. That's bad. When you're not specific, remember, the people you're reaching out to are just going to ignore your email and delete it. So you need to be specific, and don't be shy about really asking what you're there for. So be honest about it and just say, hey, reaching out to you regarding an opportunity that I saw on your careers page in your group at Stripe. Then the third line is, I'm really passionate about a career in the world of whatever that industry is, and would love to chat with you for 15 minutes if your schedule allows. So that's the ask. I would love to get some time. That's the ask. The fourth line is, my resume is attached for reference, right? Just highlight that. People are always like, oh, why should I send my resume? Should I wait for them to at least ask for it? No. Send it. The reason is, that's your salesperson. Remember, I mentioned to you earlier, your resume is the salesperson when you're not there. So let your resume do the talking when you get to that stage. So my resume is attached for reference, and we'll love to hear back from you. That's it. It's a 4-line email. That's it. Thank you so much, Jenny, right? And you hit send on that. Attach the resume, PDF, never Word document, never any other type of document, not a paint file. PDF, hit send, and update your target list saying, sent email. So that's the status on that target list. This you got to do every day, to 3 to 5 people every day, and just make it part of your job. Now, it may seem like a big mountain to climb when you say, oh my God, I got to send 200 people, emails to 200 people. But don't think of it that way. Remember, if you're trying to climb Mount Everest, you don't think about, oh, I got to get there. You just have to take one step forward. So what you have to do is just send one email. So every day, block 30 minutes of your calendar in the morning or evening or whenever you have time, and just say, this is my email outreach time. Every day, I'm just going to dedicate 30 minutes to it. In 30 minutes, I can send about 3 emails, because I'll do about 10 minutes of research on a person, send an email. 10 minutes of research, send an email. 10 minutes of research, send an email. That's 30 minutes. That's 3 emails a day. That's awesome. By the end of the month, you've sent 100 emails. That's all it is, right? So you do this outreach, and that's the first email you send out. Now, what happens when you send these emails out is 99% of these emails will not get replied, right? But 100% of these emails will get read. Now, I'll tell you this why. Because people who are opening your emails and stuff, for them, when they woke up that day, you weren't a priority for them. You're not even on that list of things that they had to do. They had a busy life, they have kids, family, whatever. So they're focused on all those things. So you're the bottom of the food chain for them in terms of priority. But for you, when you woke up, you wanted to get their attention. So there's a massive disconnect on what you want and what they're willing to provide. So they'll get this email. And in these industries, when you think of like high, fast-paced industries like tech, finance, consulting, all of these industries, people do check their emails because the whole world revolves around emails. Like if you walk into any company, what do you think people are doing? Everybody's just emailing everybody else. That's all. All jobs are just email jobs. Okay, that's basically what it is. So in this situation, when you send this email out to someone, right, they're going to read it, but they're not going to reply. And that's totally fine. Don't be disheartened by it. Just update your status saying email, didn't hear back. 3 days later, you will write another email for all the people that are reaching, all the people you're reaching out to and who haven't replied to you. You will write a second email. This second email is even shorter email, right? And that shorter email is basically, hey Jenny, resurfacing this email in case it slipped your inbox. That's kind of like a little cover. Reaching out again, would love to chat with you regarding opportunities within your group. If you have a few minutes, we'd love to chat. So short email, maybe 2-liner. Again, attach a resume, but no need to mention it because you want to keep the email short, and hit send. When you send the second email out, what's going to happen is on the other side, when the person gets it, they're like, oh, this person's actually really serious. They are actually genuinely interested in getting connected with me because they're not just mass spamming a bunch of people, even though you are, but they don't know that. So when they see that email, they actually take it more seriously. So then what happens is 40 to 50% of people that you actually email will get back to you. Now, when people, let's just say someone doesn't get back to you, you can try one more time, but after that, just move on. There's a famous saying that I always I've heard. It's like, if your horse dies, I suggest you dismount. So that's kind of the idea. In this situation, if you email someone 3 times, just move on. There's enough other people out there to email you. If you're not getting that reply, no need to chase these super dead ends. So the people that reply to you, there's a couple of things they're going to say to you. They're going to say, someone's going to be like, hey, no, I'm not interested. Thanks so much. Not a good fit. Cool, no worries. Rejection's part of life, and get comfortable with it. Be okay with it. I have a saying that I always say is like, every no gets you closer to your next yes, right? So in this situation, when you don't get a reply or someone does reply and says no, totally fine. Your life will always remain the same. It's not going to go, worse. It can only improve. So definitely take those shots, send those emails out. So if someone replies to you and says, hey, no, not interested, no worries. Just, put a no on that target list. They can also reply, yes, hey, thanks for reaching out. Like your resume. I think it's really good. I'll forward it to the right person. Sure. Now, that could mean a yes. That could also mean a no. A lot of people kind of cop out and say that so that you don't follow up. That's fine. You don't have to do anything with it. But some people will reply and say, hey, this is really interesting. Thanks for reaching out. Yes, I have some time. Let's catch up. That's the conversion. That's the call to action that you need to be focused on. And that's what you got to get people to. So definitely follow up on the second email. If you don't hear back, send one more if you want to. And if you don't hear back, move on. Keep doing this and keep repeating this, right? Keep repeating this across the board, up and down the food chain. And like I said, within a month, you'll be in front of at least 100 people. Then don't just stop. Do another month. And within 90-day plan, you've reached out to about 300 people, which is awesome, right? Those are 300 people who you've never met. Now it comes to part 4, which is execute. You got to run all these emails and potential processes in parallel. One of the biggest mistakes people do is they're like, oh, I want to work at Google, so I'll just apply to Google. Oh, I got a reply from Google. Oh, I have a process with Google now. I don't need to email anybody else. I'm already where I'm supposed to be. That's a big issue. That's the wrong way to think about it. Remember, the world of recruiting and getting a job is very similar to dating, right? If you like someone and they don't like you, you got to start dating a few other people until that other person starts liking you, right? That's kind of how the game works. So in this situation, you got to create some FOMO. You got to create a market. So you want to get that job at Google, for example, but Google's not giving you any attention. But guess what? Airbnb is giving you attention. Facebook's giving you attention. Maybe even smaller companies are giving you attention, right? So the way, remember, if in the beginning I told you, create that target list of like, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 companies. Tier 3 companies are companies you didn't really want to work at, but you can use them as leverage. So definitely reach out to companies that you're not even interested in and start getting on their radar and run all of these processes in parallel. Because what's going to happen is, just to give you a visual reference, say you have like a couple of tier 3 companies here, you have a couple of tier 2 companies, and you have 1 or 2 tier 1 companies you really want to get an interview with. But you have a bunch of tier 3 companies really interested in you because their bars are lower, they're not as exciting, and they're really happy to see someone's even applied to them. Get on their radar, get a process going with them, get into first round interviews and stuff. When you do that, start telling the tier 2 and tier 1 companies, hey, by the way, guys, look, I have interviews. I'm wanted on the street. And then tier 2 companies will be like, all right, fine, come on in. Let's come on in for the first round interview, right? So now once the tier 2 company starts giving you an interview, you can then reach out to tier 1 company, be like, hey, yo, Google, like, look at me, I'm wanted, right? And slowly start moving the entire spectrum up. Don't just leave Google here and get an offer from tier 3, and then it's too late. Tier 3 offer is going to expire. So you got to move everything in parallel, and kind of, it's like a balancing act. So spread wide and keep running this parallel process across all of your networking, and all this stuff is running in parallel. Now, when these processes happen, obviously you're not showing up in person, doing interviews and stuff. You're actually doing this on some sort of Zoom or some sort of video chat. So you need to have a great Zoom setup. Now, obviously, I don't have a perfect setup today because I'm actually in the middle of a move and stuff, but I'll just give you a couple of quick tips. Easiest tips to do. Invest in a nice HD camera. Most of the cameras on laptops are pretty crap, so you don't want to use those. Get a good, nice camera so that you look good. The other thing is lighting. Lighting is the most important part. Right now, just to give you guys an idea, maybe I can show you. Actually, maybe I can't. I'm actually just in front of a window, right? And the window gives you the best lighting. So if you have a window, which hopefully you do, right? You're not in a cave. You can use that as natural lighting. And when you do that, you will be able to get really, really nice lighting. So get nice lighting, and no need to invest in a microphone or anything.
Lighting.
Right? Exactly.
You're very well lit, Sherjan. I must say.
So get good lighting. And why this is important is, look, these people, when they interview people, they're going to be interviewing tons and tons of people, and everybody's going to have a, random ass Pulp Fiction poster in the back and stuff. Don't be that guy, right? Just have a nice professional background. Don't need to blur it. Be proud of your background, unless it's empty like mine. And you should have a nice thing so it's memorable for them. So invest a little bit in your backgrounds and stuff. A clean wall is always good. A nice background's nice. But most important is lighting. Get in front of a window and you will have great natural lighting. Then as you get these emails come back and people you're reaching out to and stuff, start recalibrating. You have a conversation with someone at a tier 1 company, but that person was kind of a dick. Delete it. No need to be working with people that are just not good people, right? Cut them out of the list. Your life is too short to be working with assholes, right? So just focus on good people, recalibrate this list, move things around, and keep targeting. Now, final piece I'm going to mention to you guys before we get into Q&A is, how do you maintain this list? A lot of people are good at building a network, and they'll get the network going and stuff, and they'll keep going, but they'll pause. They'll stop once the network reaches a certain point. No, you got to keep networking for the rest of your life, because life is a people business, right? And if you want to be good at anything, you need to learn from more and more people, get connected to more people, and more people start knowing your brand. And this is why it's important. Keep reaching out to people, keep going that, and keep having these meetings. Maybe you do it at a lower frequency, not 3 people a day. Maybe you do 1 person a week in the long run, but you keep spreading your brand. The reason that's important is, as your brand is developing and as years go by, the people that know you will then reach out to you and say, hey, by the way, you look like a great candidate. Can we hire you? And then the tables turn. Companies start reaching out to you because you have become the brand. So don't stop networking. And that's how you're going to keep going up and up the food chain. Now, last piece I'll just say is, remember how you listed those companies as tier 1, tier 2, tier 3? Just to give you an idea on the check-ins. Once you've built a network, you've touched, each one of those contacts at least once. Tier 3 companies, tier 3 people, network nodes, you don't need to reach out to. You don't need to give them an update now and then. Those are companies you're not really interested in. You just wanted to leverage them for getting into tier 2 and tier 1 contacts. Tier 2 contacts is someone, let's just say, in a company you'd be okay working with, but you're not really excited about it. You should always check in with them once every year. Right? Once a year, shoot a quick note. Hey, Jennifer, just want to give you an update. Just got promoted at Teachable. Now I'm heading marketing. Really nice chatting with you a few months ago. Hope things are well with you. If I'm in New York, we'll have to grab a coffee. That quick check-ins just to keep them updated, putting yourself on their radar every year once. For folks who are tier 1, meaning like the companies you really, really want to work with, every 6 months, a little bit of engagement goes a long way, right? Shoot them a note, let them know what's happening. If they're in town, make the effort. And remember, if 6 months is, some people are like, oh man, I didn't reach out to that person for 6 months. They're not waking up thinking about you every day, right? So don't be like, oh, I didn't reach out. This connection's so stale. No, it's not like that. Reach out, be like, hey, just, and never have an ask. Just, just stay relevant. Just stay relevant on them and keep doing this. If you keep maintaining, you'll be fine. All right, just to recap, build a brand, easy. Target list, even easier. Outreach, get that out of your system, have the confidence, start sending those emails out. And then number 4, execute, which I say just Nike it, just do it. And then number 5, maintain. Just maintain that network, keep building it. Don't stop building a network. Life is a people business. All right, let me pause there. I know that's 45 minutes, and I'm sure we have at least one question.
Thank you so much, Sherjan. I so appreciate the attention to the small things that actually end up making a huge difference when what you're doing is networking. And I'm thinking specifically about my own experience my previous job, I worked at TED. My email address was Ashley@TED. So I got lots of emails, and the ones that I paid attention to were definitely ones that had a subject line that show a little bit of effort in connecting with me on purpose, right? Nice. So the difference between something that is obviously a cold email with no personalization is not something that I'm going to pay attention to. Whereas if somebody has said, oh, hey, I saw that you did blank and I'm really interested in blank, or you went to UCLA, I went to UCLA, I will immediately, my brain makes space for that person and what they're asking about.
Yeah.
And I think that can make all the difference. And we have a couple of folks here who are interested in changing fields, right? So Erica, for example, who is in the chat, she's got a background in education, is a college professor, and is curious about transitioning into learning and development roles and maybe doing instructional design. So what I'm curious about is whether you have experience with, I guess, what I would call, expertise seeking. So I'm just and how you might invite people to have that be a part of the ask, even if it's not something. So for somebody like Erica, who may not yet have a total grasp on, okay, I want this type of role in this type of company, but maybe there are still some people that she could identify as like, oh, you know what, I want to talk to this person. And I don't know if you found this, but to me, people love being the expert, right? So even if I would love to learn, to chat with you for 15 minutes to learn about your experience. Maybe you don't know the role yet, but you're
I think one of the things people should do is, a lot of people reach out on the back foot, right? They're on the back foot. They're like, oh man, I don't want to really show my cards or, poke the bear. What's going to happen? I think in these situations, I would say I would go and lean in fully 2 feet in and ask something like, hey, I'm coming from the world of teaching, but I want to go into the world of, let's say, learning development or something else. I know you are great at it. I'd love to come be a fly on your cubicle's wall or an office wall for a week. I'll do whatever you want me to do. Bring the coffee, listen in on meetings. Just let me, most likely the person's going to say no, which is fine. Your life will remain the same. But what if they say yes?
Yeah.
What if they say yes? And if they say yes, your life can totally take a totally different trajectory. And next thing you know, you're there. So I'm always, a big fan of, always leaning into these things and putting yourself out there and stop worrying about the things about like, oh, there's this whole thing about people are always worried about they. When you try to get a vacation, someone's like, oh, are they going to let you have that vacation? Like, who's they? Like, I don't know. Like, there's always a they in the world. So I've always been like, just do it, right? Like, just Nike that shit. And hopefully, people will respond. And if they do, you have a chance and an opportunity. And I'm sure if there's one person, that one person you're reaching out to, there's at least another 50 out there. If you send or ask to another 49 of them, one of them will say yes, and hover them for a week. You'll learn so much more.
I so value that. And I think this is especially useful for somebody in Erica's position. And Daniel here is saying, if you don't ask, the answer will always be no. Very true. And maybe for Heidi as well. But just as a personal testament, Sherjan and I have just met. I'm not a plant in this workshop, but I can say that in my transition, when I left TED, I was starting my own consulting company, and I wanted to get into the space of what I've since learned is social impact entertainment. So, media, folks who are working on storytelling for social good. And I really didn't know anything about this industry, but I started looking at this handful of companies. So participant media and just following different kind of random, not random, but following different things on LinkedIn and just seeing what the landscape looked like. And then doing exactly what you said and reaching out to folks who had roles that I thought sounded interesting and just saying, hey, your work is really interesting to me. My background is in this, but I would love to know more about how you do what you do and what it looks like. And I got more accepted invites than rejections. And it was such a heartening feeling when a traditional job search can be so disheartening. Right?
Yeah, I was looking for a job a year and a half ago. My previous company didn't pan out, didn't work out. So I had to start a new one. But in the middle of that, I was like, oh, you know what? I should probably go join some other startup. And I reached out to a bunch of founders and stuff. And obviously I knew what I could do and bring to the table. And a lot of those founders didn't reply to me. Totally fine, part of the game. But then there's one founder replied, and my email was very simple. It was like, look, I think you're building something awesome. I don't see a job for it for me, but here's what I bring to the table. Like, here are the things that I am really good at. Does this piece of puzzle somehow fit in the puzzle, the jigsaw you have created? And he was really nice about it. He reached out, he's like, hey, look, it doesn't fit today, but if you can wait another 6 months, it will actually fit really nicely. So it's just all about sending that note and saying, hey, look, here's what I'm good at, but I'm also willing to expand and grow if there's things that you want me to do. I'm a raw talent. And especially as you get older in your career, you obviously have a lot of expertise you bring. You could be an author, you could be a religious leader, you could be a poet, you could be all sorts of things, right? And there's ways to fit people into things. I'll give you an example. I was talking to one of the top restaurant groups in Hong Kong once. And I was like, how do you hire? I was talking to the manager there. He's like, I don't hire anybody who has experience in the restaurant industry. I'm like, that's interesting. I'm like, why is that? He's like, because a lot of people come with these like old school ways of running a restaurant.
Baggage.
Exactly. Whereas I like that baggage. Exactly. I like to get like a clean sheet of paper and mold them into what I want them to be in our restaurant. So don't be like, oh, here's who I am. I'm not going to fit in. No. Send that email out and see maybe the other person says, you know what, I can find a spot for this person.
So I'm curious to know how you think this might apply to some creative fields. So Heidi, for example, is asking, will these steps work for my business in gaining contacts? And if the environment that you're a part of isn't sort of explicitly on the business side, and maybe folks don't have the same kind of like, oh, here are the job recs, here are the open roles, here's the head of marketing that I can reach out to. Mm-hmm. But you're looking at something that's a bit more nebulous, like an artistic field or creative field. Is there? So how might those steps apply there?
So one thing I'll say is, every business is a people business, right? It's just that there's different types of people in different verticals, right? So maybe there's a business out there where people are very protective and they're not out there. They're not as like, extroverts. Some of the industries are very introvert industries, which is fine. But I think these steps would work. They may work at a very, varying degree. But if you're in the creative field and stuff, I think one of the beautiful things about Teachable is one example. And these platforms that have come up is you don't need any permission to magnify and broadcast your talent anymore. I don't need a permission to put my stuff somewhere and wait for someone else to say, hey, now you can do this. So if you're in the creative,
there's not a they who needs to grant you access to a platform.
Exactly. Like, my mom, for example, we're Pakistani ethnically. So we make really tasty Pakistani food every day. And my mom does, she's retired, she doesn't do anything else. So I was like, hey girl, why don't you start a YouTube channel? Right. And then she's like, oh, but who's going to watch
Mama Husainie have a YouTube channel?
Yeah, exactly. So mom's got a YouTube channel and it makes Pakistani food because she's cooking every day anyway. So I just walk around with my thing and we're broadcasting her stuff now. So my point is, if you are creative and you have, whatever have a skill in, start broadcasting it and building that brand. Once that brand becomes large enough, the people you will reach out to, they will put a higher value to you. When I search you up and I see you have a YouTube channel with thousands of followers, or if I search you up, you have, some credibility in some digital world, I think I'm going to reply to that email more than other emails, right? Whereas in the world of business, your resume may matter more, but your resume is your creative content, right? So what you have on YouTube or Teachable or Skillshare, all these other platforms, which are free to use, I would use them to kind of amplify your ratings.
I love that too, because in some ways you're empowering yourself to be even more authentically yourself, because what you're doing is putting content out on a platform that you have free access to. And the people who are going to gravitate toward you are folks who, like in Heidi's case, for example, your art for art's sake, rather than how well your art showcases my product because you work for my company. Mm-hmm. And then you're building this, extended portfolio that gives you, a certain amount of credibility. If you decide that you want to go and market somebody's product, they can see, oh, it looks like this person's built a pretty decent following for themselves. Yeah. They must have something going on, even if I don't see it, or some, that kind of thing, which is really cool.
No, for sure, for sure. Actually, one point I quickly wanted to mention, I forgot to mention, just hit me. When you guys are on your Zoom interviews and stuff, a lot of people, when they interview on Zoom, they interview like this. They look in that corner because they're like looking at that person. But just put a sticky note next to your lens on the computer or wherever you are, and put an arrow next to the lens. Look here. So you see, I'm looking in the camera right now. Just look there. It'll make eye contact for the other person. So right now, for me, it feels weird because I'm looking at a little small dot on my computer, but for you, it looks like I'm actually looking at you, right? So make sure you do that. And the second tip I forgot to give you guys, I just saw it, is smile. Smile is the best way to showcase your personality. People don't want to work with Batman. They want to work with happy people, right? So,
I, as somebody who does both of those things, staring into the little dot and smiling quite frequently, I appreciate you saying that. I would love to. I know we're a bit short on time here, so I just want to, before we wrap up, one, audience, please join me in thanking Sherjan for sharing his wisdom and very practical and implementable tips for how to kind of build your brand, establish a target network, role, job, whatever it might be, and then start to take active steps toward accomplishing that goal, understanding that rejection is going to be a part of it. You got to go one step at a time. But ultimately, if you're following, if you're trusting this process, you will see some positive progress. And I completely agree and second a lot of what Sherjan said, because I've done it myself as well. And many of the best opportunities that I've had have come from exactly this type of networking. So Sherjan, could you tell us a little bit about the course and what kind of, so folks who want to kind of take this to the next level and say, okay, I've got a network that I want to grow, but if I'm really serious about, getting that job, making this move, talk to us a little bit about what else is in the course.
So guys, just give you a quick background. When I got my, jobs, after having those bottlenecks in my life and stuff, I started teaching workshops live, right? So this was back in 2010, and I've been doing this for about 11 years now. And these workshops were large events, about 500 to 1,000 people in each event. And students would show up, they would learn from me, they would get motivated over like about it was a 2-day workshop every weekend. And I would just teach them what I knew about how to, get your own dream job. And obviously networking is just one piece of it. Resume is another piece of it, but there's so much more that comes in it, from motivation to your interview skills and how to even smile and how to use tactics during interviews, how to then close offers. There's a whole there's a game to this that you got to play. There's a whole dance to this. And it's about, so last year I got connected with the folks at Teachable. So I put all of that knowledge on Teachable as my course. And it's a step-by-step guide on how to get your dream job. Now, the target industries that I usually cover or focus on are the industries of business and tech in those verticals. But even if you are in other verticals like marketing, the same principles apply, right? You still have to have, an interview. You still have to network. You still have to have that motivation. So if you are, especially if you are in the industries of, finance, consulting, accounting, technology, those 4 kind of large industries, check it out. The link will be, I think, shared with you. And check it out. I think it's 50% off or something. And try that. And on top of that, if let's just say you're not in those industries and you're looking for mentorship, I also offer mentorship, and you can also check that on my Teachable site. But all those links will be, I think Ashley will send them to you, and hopefully it helps you. And if you want other stuff, just find me on Google, right? Hopefully you don't see any naked pictures of me. It's just a bunch of good content, and hopefully that content can help you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, audience. That link, I did drop it into the chat. It's pinned to the top of this YouTube page here. So check out the full course that Sherjan's offering with a really great discount right now. It's definitely something that will go deeper into what we talked about today, which it seems like the content that we've covered that Sherjan offered today was resonating with a lot of folks. Thank you for your comments and your questions. If you are curious to know, when we have creators like Sherjan joining us for more sessions like this, that I'm hoping that Sherjan will come back and do another one of these with us, like and subscribe to the page, and you'll be the first to know as we're kind of rolling out new offerings like this. And you've got access to the link there. And I believe that the discount is good for the week. So everyone who registered for this session I will, you will definitely get an email that's got the link to the course, all the information that Sherjan shared, and of course the replay for this session. So you've got access to it for life.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Sherjan, so much for your time and your wisdom and your energy. I've really enjoyed today, and it seems like the folks at home have as well. Looking forward to next time. And audience, good luck with all of the big moves you have coming up. Keep us posted on how it turns out.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good long weekend. Take care.
Yeah, take care. Bye, everybody.